Okay, so we're recording the webinar, and you all will all receive a link to the recorded version after today. Or the people who registered who aren't able to attend, they'll receive the link, and it will also be housed in the members-only section of our website. So spread the word that it's on our website. Members can go online and listen to it after today and watch the full slide presentation, and you'll have it as a resource to refer back to. So a couple of things before we get started. So obviously you have to be logged on to the link and then call in for the audio portion. We do that because we have found the audio portion to be clearer on the recording. I know it seems a little odd the first time you do it, but I think that you'll get the hang of it. In a few moments, I will be muting everybody. And we do that so no background noise shows up on our recorded version. So I can unselect you as a muted person for conversation if we get to that point. Primarily how we'll communicate with each other, however, is through the chat function. And if you will look on your screen at this time, the chat function is at the bottom left. You can chat in a question to us, and we will respond. We may refer to your question in our webinar and name you and say, for example, that Ella just had a really great question about blank. You will not be able to see other people's chatted in questions, however. We are the only ones who can see the questions. So that's why sometimes if it's a question that we think will really apply to everybody, we'll address it to the whole group. So questions, comments, concerns, please notice that you can chat those in, and a number of you have already done that. So the chat function is very, very useful. Also, we will be sharing our screen from time to time to show you online resources. And so that's a very good feature. So I guess what I'm saying is don't worry about writing down websites because they'll be recorded on the webinar, and we're going to show them to you. At this point, any other questions before I mute everybody? All right, if you did not receive the literacy packet handout that I emailed yesterday evening from the registration list, please chat in your address, your email address now, and within the next few minutes, I will send it to that email address. So please chat it in and say, you know, I need the packet, and I will make sure that you get that as we begin. So also as we begin, if you would please chat into us your name, where you're from, and what you teach, we would really appreciate it. So do that now, and I'm going to give people a few minutes to kind of get that going as Adria introduces herself. Adria, it's all yours.
Hi, my name is Adria Smith, and I currently am staying at home with my little girl, but I have taught English 1, English 2, AP Art History, and Elementary Art. So I know what it's like to teach a special class. I know what it's like to teach elementary. I know what it's like to teach language arts. And so what I really want to give you are strategies that you can use in your classroom to get students to read. And I know
the conference has been muted.
I know that I've got some math teachers out here and social studies teachers, and so I love that you guys are wanting to put literacy in your classroom and know some strategies of how to get kids to read through critically a word problem or a piece of text that is very dense. So that's really my goal for today. We'll talk a little bit about Common Core and the direction of Common Core, but I think and I hope that we're all pretty familiar with Common Core, so we won't spend a whole lot of time on that. Kim's just checking who we have coming in. A lot of English teachers. Hello, my fellow English teachers. Music, lovely. I'm with you, teaching art. How do we get these kids to read? I love it. 4th grade.
I want to give a shout out to Renee from Keys, who lives in Park Hill. We're neighbors. I live in Tahlequah in Park Hill, so welcome, Renee.
Oh.
Oh, we have a broad spectrum of folks. Lots of middle school.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to say that I will try my best to give examples from all areas, but remember that you are the expert in your field, and I can't know exactly what a 4th grade reading teacher teaches because I don't teach 4th grade reading. So I will try my best, but really what I want for you to do today is take something and be able to use it in your classroom next week. That's my goal, and I hope that we can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, if that's okay, Tim. We're still waiting. This is beautiful. This is my first time, so I'm a webinar virgin, so just bear with me.
She's going to do a great job, and I think most of you have chatted in. So we will. I will be sending out the packet to those of you who need it in a few moments, but I just discovered I'm going to have to write down your email addresses and then go to be able to send it. So that will take a few moments. So she is going to go ahead and get going. And once again, if you have any questions, please chat them in, and we will do our best to help you.
Okay, awesome. So your screen should have changed to Little Ninja Guy. And that's really our goal, is to be stealthy and attack these standards and get our kids to really read critically. So the first little anchor icon that you see next there, it says focus on only the standards that apply to your grade levels. And this is just a place to start. Look at your standards. No one is going to be an expert the first year. It just can't happen. And as teachers, we're such perfectionists that we want to be an absolute expert right away, but give yourself some grace. You give grace to your students. Do the same thing for yourself. After you really know the standards that apply to your grade level, the next little icon has an eyeball. It says take a look at the grades above and below your grades. We have to know that. We have to know where our students are going and where they have been in order to be able to teach and reach these kids. Now the last two are in probably a dream world where you have tons of time for professional development. It says access online libraries of the Common Core state standards organized by grade level and watch videos. Yes, yet again, in your dream world, that would be wonderful. But just stay within your locus of control. Focus on the standards that are your standards and how do I incorporate them to things I already do. I don't want this training to be like, oh my gosh, it's one more thing on my plate. It's one more thing and my plate is already so full. Just think, I already do this. I'm going to add this one little bit. That's really what we want to do today. So I'm going to go ahead and flip to the next slide. Sorry, Kim is really busy getting these to you, and I promise there's nothing in the packet that I'm talking about yet. Okay, so please know that Common Core is not a fad. It is here to stay. I know that that's like hurts us, and there are a lot of people out there that say, oh, it's just a new thing, it'll switch and it'll leave, that's what everyone thinks, but I really don't think it will because many other states do the same thing and they've been doing it for a long time. So it's not past skills. Past skills were so incredibly detailed and there were so many of them, and I mean, as an English teacher I taught like, I don't know, Kim, how many were there, 118 or something crazy? Yes. And so this is like a broad spectrum, kind of how we do our rules in our classroom. You know, we give them 4 or 5 rules, and things just kind of fall under those rules. Well, the same thing happens here. They're going to give us fewer standards, but everything falls underneath those standards. The next little bullet says it will not rock your world or your lesson plans. This just really know that it's putting a label to what you already do. It's not anything new. We already do these things. It's just affirming that we're doing the right thing as teachers. It is change, and most of you who are on here want to do professional development, and you're gung-ho and you like it and you're ready to go. It's the people who we work with that resist change quite a bit. So just think about your students. Anytime you do a new activity, anytime that you do, you teach something new, the kids automatically push back. They automatically resist. And so we as teachers need to be a great role model in embracing change and just taking it baby steps. You know, like what about Bob? Baby steps. So just please know that. And it will take time to learn. And like I said earlier, because we are perfectionists naturally as teachers, we want to be experts right away, but it just doesn't work that way. Just like our students don't get it the first time around, and we have to teach it 10 times for them to even get a little bit of it, that's kind of how we need to give ourselves that grace and embracing that. It's just making it a little bit fewer standards, but yet broad enough to cover everything that we do. So Kim's going to take you to the next slide into a couple of different links that give you resources. Again, in a perfect world, I would be able to look at these resources during my planning period and not run down the hall to turn in a kid that whatever happened in class. But these two websites are great places to start. Now, I don't know how much training you have had, so I'm asking for a little bit of mercy. If you are Common Core, like I know everything about Common Core, you can like eat a snack right now while the rest of us are looking at these websites. But like I said, we're going to just take you to them. It's a great place to start. So if you do have the packet, I know that Kim has sent that to you already. Yes?
Well, I'm having a technical issue in that I cannot get the share function to work at the moment, and I'm not quite sure why. I've never had this happen, actually, on our webinar. So let me see if I can figure that out while Adria kind of talks to you about...
we can do that.
Okay.
Well, while Kim is doing that, you can look in your packet, so I'll give you some time to do that. In your packet, there is a couple of sheets that have on there Common Core shifts for English language arts, and then there's also one that says Common Core shifts for mathematics. Inside your packet, it's probably maybe the 4th page in your packet. So if you have Adobe up and you're looking through it, just kind of scroll down and you'll see it says Common Core shifts for English language arts literacy, and then Common Core shifts for mathematics. There are 3, you'll see on the left-hand margin, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 big shifts for both of those. So can I ask them to let me know if they can see this?
Okay, we're going to do an experiment. I'm going to try to open a web page through another method, and I'm going to unmute everybody, and then you tell us if you can...
The conference has been unmuted.
So just a second, let me shrink down. Are you all currently seeing the Common Core State Standards Initiative page?
I'm not.
No.
It's still on the slide? Okay. So you're still seeing the Ready Talk slide itself?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The conference has been muted.
Okay, I'm going to need, Adri's going to continue with the webinar. I'm going to need to contact Ready Talk and see if they can help us resolve the sharing issue, because I cannot seem to fix it on my own, so I need their expertise. So if you can move on, then we will try to take care of it this way.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And everybody, we apologize for this problem.
Oh, thank you. Julie said she found the info in the packet. Wonderful. No and yes. Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so in the packet, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights of big time shifts that people maybe were not expecting or ready for, or that just really, again, puts vocabulary to what we're already doing. So the first one, I'm going to look at the English language arts first. Now, this is K through 12, all of them. So really, for this, I want us to just look at the second shift. It says reading, writing, and speaking grounded in evidence from the text, both literary and informational. And that just means like fiction and nonfiction. That's all that means. There is the first line in the right-hand column says the standards place a premium on students writing to the sources, using evidence from text to present careful analysis, well-defended claims, and clear information. That is something that not all of us, honestly, as a teacher, when I first started, there is no way that I probably made my students do that unless I just said, tell me the line number where you found your answer, or tell me the sentence where you found your answer. Yes, that's kind of there, but the students weren't doing any kind of synthesis, no real kind of analysis. But what Common Core wants is, prove it. You read this, this is your answer, prove it using the text that you read. Well, with literacy, they have to understand what they read before they can defend any answer that they're able to give us. The second part, still in number 2, in the second paragraph, it says, likewise, the reading standards focus on students' ability to read carefully and grasp information, to grasp and know what arguments are being presented, what ideas are being presented, and details based on text evidence. Students should be able to answer a range of text-dependent questions, questions in which the answers require inferences based on careful attention to the text. Now, all of us are sitting there going, holy moly, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. But this, to me, I was kind of like, wow, some of my kids don't even read the information that I ask them to read. So that's what we're going to try to get to today. How do I get them to read it? Not only read it, but then understand it, and then be able to answer questions going back to it. And the last one, number 3, it's the last 2 lines of that description. It says focus on academic vocabulary, words that appear in a variety of content areas, such as ignite and commit. So that is kind of the English language arts. Now, if you will go over to the Common Core shifts in mathematics, remember that I'm just talking about literacy here. I'm not, nothing about math, how to teach it, and I'm talking about literacy. How do we get kids to read and really grasp information, and what is the math standards? What are they asking us to do? Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cough. Please, I apologize. So the first one says focus strongly where the standards focus. It's about the third line, or second line. It starts, teachers use the power of the eraser and significantly narrow and deepen the way time and energy is spent in the math classroom. They focus deeply on the major work of each grade so that students can gain strong foundations. Again, this is Common Core and how they want you to do these things. And then I also want you to look at 3, rigor in major topics. Says teachers support students' ability to access concepts from a number of perspectives so that students are able to see math as more than a set of mnemonics or discrete procedures. Well, how do you do that? Well, they need to read scenarios. They need to see what it's like in the real world. Where does this apply? Don't leave it like my geometry teacher left me, and she said, one day you're going to need to measure your house for carpet, and you will need to know area. Well, that isn't relevant to a 15-year-old's life at all. It's relevant to my life now when I don't remember how to do that, but it wasn't relevant to me then. So that's kind of where they're going for math. Now notice too that underneath the math shifts, there are words like particularly science. Ensure that students are using math to make meaning of and access content. So all of us need to know what the English standards and the math standards say and are. Also, right behind there in your packet, there is a depth of knowledge DOK levels. It has level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. It's a circle. It's lovely. It's a cute little, if you can just chat in if you found this in your handouts. Again, this is in your handouts, not on the slides. But it says depth of knowledge, DOK levels. Yes, ma'am. Found it. I love you guys. You're so good. Yay! Yay. Perfect. So this is going to come into play with our next slide. I'm going to see if I can do this without messing something up. Okay, yay! All right, Kim is back, so we're going to take a pause.
Well, what I've learned is that ReadyTalk cannot fix the problem unless we cancel the conference and start again. And we're not going to do that. So I'm going to continue checking a couple of other things. It may be that what I have to do is later send you all the links via email, which we will do. But I apologize. We've never had this technical issue. But there you go. So we appreciate your understanding and patience.
Okay, good. Thank you. So this is wonderful. All right, so the next slide you see is this chart. And on this chart, which I'm going to find mine of my own, is all about what Common Core kind of goes toward. And we all remember Bloom. We love him. We studied him. We learned him in all of our ed classes. It's very exciting stuff. But, excuse me, we are moving from knowing trivia, which, you know, trivia means trivial knowledge. It's kind of like the stuff that you could be great at Jeopardy or trivia at the Buffalo Wild Wings whenever you're playing. But we want to get our kids, our students, from the A and B level up to C and D. And that's tough, honestly, because A and B we're very comfortable with teaching to A and B, and we're very comfortable testing with A and B. But do our kids remember it? That's the thing. You know, it's always the things that you do that it's the crazy things of acting things out that your students remember. They love it. That's what they remember and what they love. It's not memorizing the vocabulary words for the test on Friday and then forgetting them the next week when you ask them. So A and B, I just want you to really look at this. A is really low level, no application. It's just knowledge in the discipline, which we need to give them. We have to give them the vocabulary words. We have to do that lower level area. It's not like A is obsolete. The students have to have that. But we don't stay there. We don't live in A. We want to move around and go to B, C, and D. So then we go, okay, so real world application within my discipline. Okay, so this is kind of like level 2 if you're looking at your DOK page. So how do I get them there? Well, they're going to compare it to something they already know or predict or infer. Then we go to C, application to real world, in very predictable situations. That means the equation fits. You know, we taught them the equation vocabulary in A. We practiced it with questions 1 through 10 in B. And then C, you give them a word problem, and they know that that exact equation will fit into that question, if that makes sense. Now, where we want them to get is D, where they are faced with a problem, a real-world global problem, and they have to rely on everything they've learned up to this point to solve that problem. There are no great, there is not one answer, maybe. There are maybe 3 answers that would be correct based on what they know. So D is, listen, I mean, if you get one activity, one D project, great. It's hard. It's difficult to think up there. So I want you to look at your DOK levels, activities 1 to level 3, 4, and I just want you to use some time right now to think about, okay, what am I already doing in my classroom, and how could I get a level C or D, which on your paper would be like a level 3 or 4, activity into what I'm doing in my classroom. So if I just want you to take some time to do that, and you can chat in your answers if you want to. Here's what I would do, and we might share them. But I'm just going to give you some time to really look at that. 3 and 4, how could I get that into what I'm already doing? And listen, kindergartners, they can do a level D. First graders can do a level D. We might have to walk them through and really scaffold those steps, but they can do it. So I'm just going to give you some time to kind of look and see in what I'm already doing, how could I do a level C and D? Okay, Chris shared something great. He said, I feel that with my math classes that I can use word problems, which I do for my pre-AP Algebra and Algebra 1 lessons, as it is to use word problems and relate these to real-world situations that students face. I think that is so crucial. It has to be relevant to what their life now. It's not like what I said my geometry teacher said, well, when you need to carpet your house, you'll need this formula. Well, I don't care about that when I'm, like I said, 15. I care about something different. So making it relevant to their lives. That means you have to know who your students are, what they love. You know, if you're going to create the Game of Thrones throne or whatever it is, what formula would you use? I don't know. They shouldn't be watching that show, actually, so maybe not. But they probably all do. I don't know. So thank you for that. This page, if you take anything away, needs to go, this depth of knowledge needs to go into your lesson plan book, honestly, so that we're doing these things.
Julie Bruner has a really great suggestion as well. She types in that in the Forces in Motion unit we are currently working on, I have students build identical ramps and test the weight of the cars to see which ones have the greatest speed. I could possibly have them build their own cars or design an ideal ramp. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Sheena asks, would having the students give a report card over a book they have read or just about a character, would that work for critique?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because they're having to use all the information that they know, plus information that they've gained from other books and other movies or things about characters. So they're reaching across curriculum, even like historical figures. So they're synthesizing all the information that they know and building that report card. I think that's wonderful. Now, if you are like me, or maybe you're not like me, maybe you are a wonderful, fabulous teacher that wants to do all these things, but you think, I'm thinking, wow, that takes a lot of class time. I have all of these things to teach. But let me tell you, your kids will know more about that topic. They will remember it, and they will Instagram you or Facebook message you and say, thank you so much for this. I'm so glad I had this in sophomore English class because now I'm using it in college. So, or they'll come back to you from elementary school. They'll come back when they're in middle school and say, thank you for this. So just know that, yes, these things take more time, but we want the students to be the ones doing most of the work, not us. We want them to be doing the work and reaching in and synthesizing this information and making it become their own, not what we think about it, but what they think about it. So all of those are really wonderful. Kim, anything else?
Yes. Referring to the discussion about the critique, we were asked that, just a moment, I'm going back up to that person's question. They asked about that if a book character was that book report or that critique about a character in a book. Absolutely, especially if you're asking your students to write about a character's motivations and actions and how those subsequent actions impacted the plot or the direction or how it impacted the student even. So, and again, you want the students to be using text-based reasoning, so you're going to want lots of textual references for however they choose to critique or give an opinion. You know, having students give opinion and really ties into the concept of persuasive writing to some degree, but you want them to give evidence from the text whenever they are trying to make a claim about the text.
And I want to go across curriculum here and talk about science and math as well. There is nothing that says that, well, in a science experiment, students have to report their findings based on evidence, based on what the data they collected. So don't think that this is just applying to English language arts. I don't want that to be your takeaway today. I want you to think, well, in math, when they solve that problem, they have to go back and explain to me where they got that information. Why did you use X to solve this instead of Y? Or, you know, there's all types of ways that you can get them to read critically and respond back to the text. Please, please, please don't think that this just applies to them reading a novel. It does not. They have to prove how they got that answer. Prove it, prove it, prove it. If we take anything away from today, please let that be it. Where did you get this information? Show me in the text, and we'll talk about strategies in which to do that. So, there's like this weird little fly in here that wants to know about literacy. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go forward. Can you go to the next slide?
Oh, we've had some great additional examples. Sandra Jackson says, I've had speakers come in and tell and show the artifacts of the story that we're reading in class, which is awesome. Crystal, my students design, create, and present iMovie public service announcements on a current issue. My kids like this during my argument and persuasion unit. And that is an excellent example that we refer to in our writing across the curriculum presentation about, you know, connecting literature and writing, but in typical, you don't have to just utilize typical writing forms. Have kids do writing that's kind of outside of the box, especially when it involves presentation of knowledge. So we've gotten some great ideas today. All right, I'll move the slide forward.
Okay. What you see before you is a Lexile text measurement. And why do we need to get kids reading at a higher level, more honestly more technical information, and this goes out to my science and math teachers. When you look at the military, the level that the military documents are, they're higher than our high school documents. So that would be a great place to get some technical information. The citizenship test, look how much higher it is than high school, even higher than the SAT, the ACT, AP exams. It's higher than that. Workplace knowledge. Kids have to be able to think on their feet. That's what businesses want. They want people who are problem solvers. Those are the people they want to hire. Can you solve a problem? Can you think outside the box? That's what they want. They don't want to have to tell a student or a new employee every single little thing they want to do. It just doesn't work that way. So, community, college, university, and then the GRE, way up there on the Lexile measures, which Lexile measures words per line, the vocabulary used in the text. So this is just this was an eye-opener for me, and that's why I included it in here, to think, oh, yeah, I'm really getting my kids to read this tough information, and no, I really wasn't getting them to read that tough information, because high school textbooks are lower than many of the things that you see on there, especially the citizenship test. So just something to think about, something to have in the back of your mind, especially when you're showing your kids, this is why I'm making you read this tough information, because when you leave me, which some of them will go straight from high school to the workplace, and you show them what they're going to be reading in their workplace, it's a big shift. So anyway, just something you can use as a tool. You can find these online to show your students and to kind of break it down for them.
One of the websites we were going to show you is achievethecore.org. If you want to open up another window on your own, you can certainly do that and shrink between ReadyTalk and the other windows as we are moving through the webinar. If you go to achievethecore.org, they have an entire section dedicated to Lexile, and also they are heading up the project where they are converting Basel readers, which are used across the United States, to Common Core use. And there are thousands of references within that Basel alignment project. So for those of you who are really, especially early childhood and working with IEP students, text complexity can be a significant issue. So I encourage you to utilize the Achieve the Core resources for things like Lexile, text-dependent questions, lots of great things for Common Core.
Awesome. Okay, so the next little slide you have has our ninja, and he's reflecting, he's meditating. And here's the thing. The first little icon, I guess, that I want to focus on, it says, compare your Common Core state standards aligned lessons and units to your strongest lessons and units that you currently do. A lot of us are thinking, that's great, but I don't have time. Well, here's my response to that. Just ask for time. All they can tell you is no. Ask for your principal to come in and cover your class for an hour so that I can go and compare my state standards to what I'm currently doing. Have them get back into the classroom. Have them see what it's like. Please just don't think that they're just going to say no. All they can say is no. So, okay, so ask. Just ask for that time. You have to prepare yourself for what this means for you, your students. You know, a lot of times I think teachers go in and they say, okay, we're going to do this, and they don't explain the why. Here's why we're going to read this tougher text. You know, that's why you can show them that Lexile graph. Why are we doing these things? You have to prepare your students for it. They want to know the why just like you want to know the why. Why are we changing to Common Core? Well, here's why. And so make sure that you tell your students, you know, this world is becoming very global, and we have to be ready to compete with students in Beijing and students in Copenhagen, as well as students in New York City. Like, it's not just that we're competing against other states now. It's the whole world. And so tell them the why, tell them the why. And then the other thing is you have to prepare your parents. However you do that, through weekly emails, through conferences, through a parent night of this is why we're doing this, this is the shift. And, you know, if your principal hasn't taken initiative, maybe you take initiative. And that, I know that's a lot on your plate, but parents will be on your side if you give them information.
I'd like to add that the National PTA website has a lot of great information about how to explain Common Core to parents, and even has resources you can direct them to, and they do deal specifically with the increased text complexity and close reading, writing across the curriculum. So you can Google National PTA, Common Core, or something, and you can find those resources.
Something came up, a participant commented on time. That's time to prepare, even more important, time for the students to do activities. Listen, I'm with you, sister, because we had to give benchmarks and benchmarks and more benchmarks, and it was like I was testing my kids all the time and no time to do the activities. Well, I really just prioritize. Think about what your goal is for each lesson. What's the goal that I want them to come out with? Are there things that I can cut? And remember, with Common Core, this is very different for us, especially math teachers. It is about depth and not breadth. And so getting them to read, you know, War and Peace, which heaven forbid, it's more like they're reading segments of it and really deep thinking about those segments. And it's kind of what AP has done for a long time. And I don't want to leave my elementary teachers out of this. You know, it's not getting through the entire reader. It's exploring one story in every facet that I can, so that the students are already familiar with the text, but then I'm going deeper with the text. It's not this surface knowledge anymore to say that, yeah, I've read 20 AR books or whatever it is. It's, I've read it, I understand it, I know what that character, why that character does what he or she does. Or I look at this science experiment and I understand why the hypothesis went wrong. It's not just the hypothesis was wrong. It's I understand why it was wrong. So that's kind of where we're getting those students to go. So I know the time issue is there, but remember, we're not going to be experts either. I mean, the first year, second year, third year, God knows I didn't know what I was doing until I was about a 5-year teacher. So again, give yourself some grace about that.
I'd like to add that one of the things we're really pushing for with Common Core this year legislatively is more time. So teachers need to advocate for that. A couple of things I've heard about as I go out and do professional development with teachers. A lot of, not a lot, but several different groups of teachers that I know at the department level, what they're doing is designing team teaching units. And so groups of teachers in close grade levels or the same grade level are teaching large groups of kids, and then the other teachers are freed up to do curriculum work or other work on those bigger time blocks. Or you can trade, for example, on your planning period, you know, you cover somebody's class to open up somebody else's, which I know is problematic. And again, you know, talk to principals about finding that time. I think that teachers have to advocate also for some structural changes, early release time, changing the start time at secondary where teachers have more time in the morning to work individually with kids. You know, it is an issue, and we realize it's an issue, and the OEA is working towards trying to change Oklahoma's model of professional development and professional learning to being the research-based standard, which is 90 to 100 hours per year. And when you think about what we get in Oklahoma, we get a third of that. So we're trying to work on it. So membership and advocacy matters.
Okay, before Kim goes to the next slide, I want you to just chat in. Okay, I want you to chat in, what is literacy? Like, just tell me, what is literacy? In your own words, just chat in. This is literacy to me. This is what that means. Okay, so what is literacy? Many of you say reading and writing and able to comprehend and apply it, understanding what I've read. One person said speaking, oral communication, or a couple of people said oral communication. Literacy means to be able to read, understand, and verbalize. Beautiful. Kim, if you'll go ahead and advance the slide. This is what literacy is supposed to look like. Reading, oh yes. Writing in every area. Listening and speaking. Now, this one is one that many of us forget to do in our classroom because, again, it takes time. How do I teach my kids to listen? How do I teach them to speak eloquently on the topic? Language development. Communication includes writing. That's what someone else said. Language development, that means vocabulary. It means being able to take the word content and say all of the different ways what that means. And then media and technology. This is difficult when some of our schools don't have great technology, but our students are so inundated with technology. But that doesn't mean they know how to use it correctly. We have to teach them how to use it and connect with technology. I was always baffled that my students could take their iPhone out or their smartphone and do all of these crazy things with it, and yet when I opened up a Word document to teach them how to write an essay, they could not use Microsoft Word. So that's kind of where we are. Yes, I can play games and create an iMovie, but I can't type a paper in Word. So how do we get to teach them how to use this technology effectively that they have right at their fingertips? So please don't forget about listening and speaking, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So all of those fall under the umbrella of literacy. Right here, this is just kind of a all-encompassing idea of where the standards really anchor themselves. They want students to find the ideas and details in a text. They want them to recognize the structure, how that text was put together. They want the students to be able to connect their knowledge and ideas. And they want us as teachers to give them a wide range of reading and level of text complexity. So all of that falls underneath what we're to do. Now, again, we would go to a wonderful website if we could, but I'll let Kim kind of talk to you about Achieve the Core. Again, she asks you to maybe open this up in a different window. And if you can do that, awesome. If you can't, just Kim's going to kind of talk to you about text-based questions, and I'll let you talk to them about that.
Okay, so the Achieve the Core website is a joint collaborative effort by many different people involved in Common Core, the National Governors Association, PARC, Smarter Balance, which are the two assessment groups. But really what I love about it, it's really been shaped heavily by teachers. And so if you will go to the website, achievethecore.org, you'll notice that the whole idea is that everything there is free and for stealing. And so they have really led the charge on creating real professional development for teachers to help make the core possible. And I really love their ELA section. I'm an English teacher, so of course that's the area I focused on, but they have resources for every subject area. But if you'll go to the ELA Resources tab, you can find the text-dependent questions section. And within that module, there's a 1 to 4 hour professional development series that you can go through and do on your own. There is a short document for creating text-based questions and a long document for the criteria for text-based questions. So there are some really great resources there to help you craft text-dependent questions, because it's a little bit more complicated than it appears on the outset. You want your questions to begin with easier questions and then move into questions that really help kids focus on specific areas of the text. So to me, it shifted my focus from, okay, I want kids to answer this question from the text, to my questions shape how involved kids get with the text. And specific questions are like highlighters of the text. My questions say, oh, well, these facts are really important. Or, oh, this section is really important to the central theme. Or, this part really helps me understand this scientific process. So it's a way of thinking about questions as leading kids into closer and closer reading of the text. So that is kind of a process, and your questions have to be shaped in such a way that you lead them into that. What I love about it, it is truly across the curriculum. In fact, I think that text-based questions a lot of times are even easier to create for nonfiction text and nonfiction subjects, and help kids really dive deeper into close reading. That's what you want the kids to do. The questions are a way to get kids to more closely read what is there. So Achieve the Core, if you will utilize those resources, they have checklists, they have examples, they have text examples. It is phenomenal. So I really hope you will utilize that resource. Also, if you will go to NEABetterLesson.org, and I'll chat that in. The NEA partnered with Better Lesson and made it free to every teacher in the United States. And they, about a month ago, they released 3,000 lesson plans designed for Common Core for every subject area. And many of those, if you search them, have references to text-based questions. So there are many examples there as well. So there's lots of good places for you to get started about how to utilize text-based questions. So if you have any questions or comments about that, please chat them in, and I will respond to you individually.
Okay, so here's how I used to introduce this to my students. I taught high school most of my career, and so I told them this about reading something. I always connected it to dating because I had 14, 15, 16-year-olds, and they were all starting to date. So I would always say, okay, the first date that you go on with someone, do you know everything about them? No, no, no. I said, yeah, it's always kind of awkward. You don't really know much about them. You kind of just know the surface, like she's really cute in those jeans, or she plays basketball, but you don't know that person. You know, you're just getting to know them. Second date, i.e. the second time you read something, you get to know it a little bit more. You're kind of understanding what it's like. It's not till like the third or fourth time that you go out with someone where you're like, ooh, I really like this person, or I want this person to lose my phone number, like, quickly. So that is kind of how I would connect it. With your little students, with elementary, you can always connect it to friends. When you first met this person, did you think that they were going to be your friend forever? No, no, there's no way that you could know that. Because our kids are so used to, like, scanning on a computer screen. I mean, they don't even scroll down to read all of it. They just look. And so they think they know everything the first time they read it, and that's not true. And we want students to delve back into the text and prove their answer. That's why I have that on there. I also always gave them an analogy of a lawyer. You know, how many of you would go to a lawyer and want them to defend you, and they just stood up and said, he's not guilty. I'm not going to give you any reasons why. You just need to take my word for it, not guilty. Oh, my kids would be like, no, that's a horrible lawyer. Well, you have to prove your answer. You can't just say this, and then that's it. You have to prove it. Prove it, prove it, prove it. Convince me, I would say a lot in my classes, or show me to the little ones. So maybe they just highlight, or maybe they put a smiley face next to something where the answer is. It's having an intimate relationship with the text. And I know that sounds like weird, me talking about intimacy, but it's really getting to know it. What are all the nuances? What is it that I need to think is important? And that's what Kim was saying, you know, with your first few questions. Those are the questions you would ask someone, analogy-wise, on their first date. It's really kind of surface information. It's stuff that I got the first time I read it. Then you get into the deeper questions, the second or third date questions. So whatever you want to talk to your kids about, find an analogy, relate it to their lives, however that works, so that they have a vocabulary to kind of use when you're talking about text and text-based questions. The next slide that we have is, unless Kim needs to talk, is anyone?
I was just chatting into someone. All right,
Okay.
I'm advancing the slide now.
Oh, perfect. The next thing is, please don't do this by yourself. Kim has given you some of the websites that will work. Please, please, please collaborate. We can't do it all on our own. It's impossible, and it's always great to have someone by your side that's going to help you. There are things online. There are many communities online that will help you. Excuse me. So, again, find things, steal them. Please don't recreate the wheel. So that hopefully that will help you. Now, the next pretty much hour or 30 minutes to an hour that we're going to spend is going to be really just me talking about strategies that are going to help you kill it, which I hope you like that slide. You're going to kill it. I thought it was clever. So Kim's laughing at me, but there you go. So there are so many different ways that you can teach something. Find one today that you love, that you're going to try, and that you're going to use. And remember, you might fail miserably the first time, but don't give up. Don't give up. So that's kind of where this part of our training is going to go, is, okay, so how do I do this? All right, so training your ninjas. Look at all of them. They're so fierce. I love it. So ways that we can do this are graphic organizers, word walls, kinesthetic activities. Oh my goodness, we forget about those kinesthetic learners, and we cannot. Fluency and practice, differentiated activities, and annotation of text. So if you have your packets, I'll be referring to those quite a bit because now that we can't use the internet, you need to make sure that you have those little packets. There were some in your packet. If you'll go to your packet, there is a little ninja guy in there that says, the NPR report says there is substantial evidence to support the teaching of the following comprehension strategies. There they are. We're going to flip past that one. The next one, I think, says creating questions for close analytical reading exemplars, a brief guide. This is how to create text-based questions. So that's in your packet. The next page says these are ways to just help you get text to put into your assignments. We're going to skip past that. You've got it. And then I hope I have this in the right order. Maybe not. We're going to start getting into some of the graphic organizers and things that you can use. So we're going to go down to graphic organizers. I'm just going to talk through these. You probably already know them. I don't think your Prezi will go, will it?
No, I can't show you Prezi, but you can bring Prezi.com up, and then I will send you an email after today's webinar that has the address to the specific Prezi that we wanted to show you, which is really a fantastic strategy Prezi. If you don't know what Prezi is a presentation platform. It is a lot like PowerPoint, only instead of having individual slides, you utilize a cursor and you move over your presentation as if it's like this big, flat, virtual, poster. Mm-hmm. And you highlight certain areas and they'll pop up and then shrink. It's really cool. It's Prezi.com, and it's free, and you can utilize it. And your kids, especially middle school and high school, love to use Prezi and create presentations in Prezi. And once they use Prezi, they never want to use PowerPoint again. So just be warned that if you utilize Prezi, your kids are really going to want to use it from that point on, which I celebrate. The only downside to Prezi is that it is a cloud platform, which means that what is created is stored on an online database far, far away. And so the kids and your presentations are stored online. You retrieve them online and present them online. You can pay more money to be able to save them and utilize the program directly. Some districts do that, some don't. And I love Prezi, but we don't use it a whole lot because, believe it or not, there's a lot of schools we go to where internet accessibility is still a problem for professional development presentations. So there you go with, technical issues that the State Department of Education do not believe exist.
Okay, so graphic organizers. We've all probably heard this terminology. Yes, blah, I should use them. These are just some quick ones that work. Now, why graphic organizers are important? We have two hemispheres in our brain, right and left, logic and creativity. And graphic organizers help that. They help the visual learners, they help your ELL kids, and they help your special ed or special needs children, I guess I should say. So graphic organizers are very, very important. Even think about how you set up pages that you create, documents you create. Putting a box around the text is important so that students know where it starts and stops. Just really think about visually how do you present things. KWHL, what I know, what I want to know, how am I going to learn it, or how did I learn it, and what did I learn? This is great to keep up in your classroom. What do I currently know about something? I always use sticky notes with mine so that students can put in what they know. And there's not that judgment, I guess, there, because everyone's sticky note is the same color, and they just put it on the poster. Here's what I know. And then as a teacher, I can move it, the sticky note, very easily to the L part, and then I can take them off, and my KWL or KWHL chart stays up in my classroom at all times. Venn diagrams. Don't forget that there are ones with 2 circles. There are some with 3 circles. It's always, always great for students to see what are the commonalities and what are the differences. We know from Marzano that comparing and contrasting is one of the key high-yield strategies of how students learn and keep and retain that knowledge. A concept web is just what you've always seen, especially with writing. Put the main idea in the middle. What are the additional ideas out in different circles or squares? It looks like a spider. It's just, again, a way to group information for students to be able to remember. I don't know how all of your brains work, but I know that my brain works much better with lists. But there are many students who need to see that concept web. And then a timeline, teaching AP Art History. This was crucial, very crucial. And I would have them put pictures on their timeline. It could be for a story. It could be for a science experiment. It could be for, of course, history. But it's very good for our students to organize things in chronological order to know what happened and to know cause and effect.
I would like to add to this that I typed in that, first of all, Marzano's Classroom Instruction That Works, the first and second editions. There's an entire chapter on graphic organizers. He has a publication called The Blackline Masters, which have hundreds of examples of the different types of graphic organizers. But really, you can Google and find many, many, many of them. I would also like to add that for students from poverty, Ruby Payne's extensive research, which has been replicated over and over again about what's called quality of input theory, it really shows that visual representation and the graphic organization of information greatly adds the cognitive ability to store and retrieve information. And so for students of poverty especially, the use of graphic organizers, and when I do my professional development on graphic organizers, I tell teachers you should use them every day. You should graphically organize notes and help students learn to do that, graphically organize text that you present to them. Every way you can. There are process, graphic organizers, invention, questioning strategies. They're awesome, so please consider using them. In Ruby Payne's research and Marzano's, it shows that cognition can be aided 30 to 70% depending on which one you use. So please look into it.
One of the other things I will add about graphic organizers is this. When we, and I don't know what generation you are raised in, I'm a Generation X millennial, we were taught information in our brains stored all of it in like a file cabinet. And then when we needed that information, our brain and our neurons would go find that information, and then we would have it. Students now, children now, their brains are not working that way anymore. They look at information and they won't store everything. They find the information they need and they keep it because information is at their fingertips. They know they can go find that again, so why do I need to store it? So their brain does not work that way. So we need them to find this information and store it visually, which is what they're used to finding information from. And so that's why, again, a graphic organizer works. Am I right, Kim?
You are right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So know that their brains are not the same as ours. And I know that sounds bizarre, but it just really, really is true. So what else? Was I going to say anything? Oh, graphic organizers. They're not hard to find. You can use them in PowerPoint where it says insert graph. And there are all kinds right there. So don't think that you have to go out and find different things. You could have it up on a PowerPoint screen easily. So that is graphic organizers. Please use them. Again, it's very, very easy to use it, and I'm glad Kim said every day because that's very true. All right, the next thing that we have is a word wall. Wow. Make your students be in charge. A word wall is simply, you can have the alphabet up, A, B, C, D, and then the words that fall underneath it. You can have units up on your walls, and the vocabulary that falls underneath it. But it is a great visual for your students to use the vocabulary you want them to use, whether it is how to speak to one another or vocabulary content. So here are just some tips. Make the students in charge of the word wall, not you. You have already tons of things on your plate. Make them create the vocabulary word on a piece of paper. Make them add the definition, not you. You have too much on your plate. It only works if you refer to it. The word wall, it's great if it's hanging up in your room because you have to have a word wall, but it doesn't work unless you refer to it all the time and your kids can see that. I like to use string or whatever you wanted to use. String was always easy for me because it's cheap. To link the commonalities in the words so that this word is connected to this word in this way. That way, now I'm getting my kids to really think about that word and why is it up there and what is it linked to. And again, make the students make the connection. You don't do it, they do it. They're in charge. You are a facilitator. More and more we need to realize as a teacher, we are the facilitator. We're no longer the sage on the stage. We're the person going, okay, so are these words connected at all? Make the kids come up with it. So just the thing about word walls, yes. Go ahead, Kim.
And in writing across the curriculum presentation, we encourage all teachers at every grade level, every subject area, to have a wall of transition words arranged by the purpose of different transition words. You can Google this, find a printout, and make your wall. Why? Because good transition usage is how to create good syntax or good sentence structure and good textual structure when you write. But when kids are reading, you can point out transition words as to help them go think in their own minds, oh, well, I'm going to get another idea here, or, oh, well, the author is changing focus at this point. So transition words have many, many different uses. So think about incorporating that into your classroom as well. And that's another webinar. The Writing Across the Curriculum webinar was our first one. And if you'd like to learn more about that, you can go to our website and download that and participate with that webinar too.
Okay, so the next slide that Kim has for you would be another website that we would go to, but we can't. It is called Wordle, and it is pretty awesome. What it does is it takes the text. So if you had the text, like your math problem or your paragraph about biomes, or in elementary, you have a paragraph from the story. What it does is when a word is repeated, that word becomes bigger and bigger. So if Abraham Lincoln is repeated 5 times in a paragraph, it is the biggest part. Then you have the rest of the words that are smaller. Maybe you have slavery is in there 3 times. Well, it's a little bit smaller than Abraham Lincoln. So it gives the kids a visualization of the text. What are the important words? Well, we all know the more you repeat something, the more important it is. So therefore, it will be bigger on the Wordle. It's awesome. You can do it in shapes. You can do all different types. Kim sent it out to you, I hope. Yes. And so, oh yeah, she asked, okay. Sorry, I'm like reading, and I should not be reading those things. But Wordle is great. You can do it for many different types of things. You can do it as an opening activity. Have the kids give you sticky notes of something that they remember from the day before. Then you type it in, and it will show what they have, what they remembered. Hopefully your biggest word is not nothing. So that is one way to use Wordle. Again, visually getting kids into the text, but then showing them visually what it looks like. Very powerful. Something fun to use. Again, your students can use this if they have access to computers or their own smartphones or whatever they have. Okay, so kinesthetic activities. You, in your handout, we're going to come back to the page that says Ideas for Strategies and Differentiation. So we're going to come back to that, but let's flip through some of the activities. Foldables are wonderful, and they work for all age levels. Please don't think that this is just a elementary thing. It can work for high school and middle school as well. Her name is, the woman who's like the foldable guru is Dinah Zike. Is that right? Yes.
Here, spell it for me, and I'll put it on chat.
I will. Dinahzikes. Zikes. Yes.
Yikes, what a name.
I know. I dated a guy with last name Zikes. Side note, there you go. They help students take complicated data and information and make it visual and kinesthetic. It chunks information in this way. Students are encouraged to self-question, self-check with a foldable. They can manipulate it. It's just really, really wonderful. It's a way to organize their thoughts. They can write information at the top of the flap with details under the flap, or, on the side. My kids used to do it on the sides, and then they would just fold the paper over where they could still see the vocab word or whatever it was, and they could open it up, see the information, and then close it. It's just really a study guide. It's a way to organize information. It's really, really great. The other bullet we have here is cooperative activities. A lot of teachers shy away from this because it tends to be a place where many discipline problems occur. Some ways to combat that and to combat your fear. You need to give 3-step directions. First, we're going to do this. Second, we're going to do this. Third, we're going to do this. Give them 3-step directions. My 3-step directions would always be, you're going to go here, you're going to take this with you. When you get there, your third direction is look at Miss Smith. That would be their third direction. Here's how you get them to do it so that you're not saying these directions 50 times. You say it one time. The next time, have them whisper to their elbow partner the 3-step directions. Again, I'm not talking. Then you have them mouth the directions to someone across the room. They're saying those directions again. I'm not saying them, they are. Then I have them tell me, I have one student, I'll call on one student, tell me the 3-step directions. They've already heard it 3 times. Surely by now they have it. So that one student repeats it. Then the whole class tells me the 3-step directions. Again, I've only said it one time, but they are doing the work. They are talking to one another. They're listening to one another, which is part of our skills. So that helps. You also, with cooperative activities, which just means group work, okay, honestly, group work, you need to have a clear goal of what you want to accomplish, and the kids know it. Clear goal. 3-step directions, clear goal. The other thing that will save you is a great way to get their attention. That is not yelling. I had a lunch counter bell that just dinged. You know, I would ding it and they knew, which I had to teach them, and I taught high school, please remember, we would practice when the bell rings, what do? You look at me. You're quiet and you look at me. So we had to practice all of these things. Now, was it successful every time? Did I always have some kids that were crazy and acting out? Sometimes, yes. But 3-step directions, having them say those 3-step directions, a clear signal and clear goal was very, very helpful in doing group work. Don't not do group work because you're scared that it will cause a discipline problem. You're going to have kids that are going to talk no matter what. Tell them when to talk. You can talk now. You can't talk now. So just for group activities, clear goal. Why do I want them to work in groups? What is it that groups will do that they can't do on their own? Well, kids teach kids sometimes better than we can. Start small. Start with partner activities. Then maybe 3, 4. I never had groups larger than 5. Maybe you just get to 3 in your group, and that's all that you feel like your kids can handle. But please do it. Guys, they're going into a world where they're going to have to work with people every day, and people sometimes that they don't like, and they have to figure out ways to do that. The other thing, and well, I'll talk about that with inner outer circle. So group activities. The last thing is inner outer circle. I literally would arrange my desks with some in the middle, an inner circle, and then the rest of the desks were in an outer circle. Students in the inner circle would be answering the questions posed to them by the students in the outer circle. This requires a lot of preparation on the students' part, because they have to have great questions, and on your part to be able to tell them, well, how are they going to be graded? How am I going to assess this activity? How do I share? So on the internet, and I would just do a search, I always had STEMs. That means basically a script. Is that kind of a better way to say it? I say STEMs, but a script of how to answer questions. So one of them might be, and I had them typed out for my students so they could use them. I heard what Kim had to say, and I would like to add blank, so that they actually listened to what Kim said and then could add their own. So I'm just going to stop right here and give you guys some time to ask any questions you might have about these kinesthetic activities, ways that I'm getting kids up and moving, or give us some examples of your own kinesthetic activities. Okay, some of us I think have zoned out, but some of us have answered, and I want to say that this was mentioned.
Eileen Warren.
Eileen Warren said she has poster paper on desks where kids move around in small groups to answer conceptual questions using evidence. We love that. I have heard that called, and this is what I called my students, or told my students, that these were graffiti boards. So it kind of gave them where they could have an artistic flair if they wanted to on it. And they would just add. So it didn't have to be in a list. It just was information put on a piece of paper. So,
we have a question from Winona. What was the last thing you mentioned about the students responding and others adding? What was the sentence frame you used?
I simply had, I heard what Kim or blank, I would have it on their sheet as a blank, had to say, and I would like to add, and then they would add their information. Or I would like to disagree with what she said about this. I always had those script. It was a script, and the kids had to refer back to it so that they always had to give information that they had heard by listening before they answered or added their information.
You can also Google Socratic Seminar or Socratic Dialectical, which is long, but Socratic Seminar is an easier thing to look at. And there are some stems that you can use or sentence frames that you can use with that. When I used it, my kids would have to say, I agree with Stephanie when she said blank because blank. However, I would add blank because. And so I always focused on you have to restate what the previous person said, and then your statement has to have the because statement, because the because is what forced them to give the textual evidence. Also, Sandra Jackson asked, I'm not sure I understand your 3 steps on cooperative activities. You give the 3 steps first and then
they do the activity, or I give them 3 more directions. So maybe their first 3 directions are take your papers, go to this desk, and turn to Ms. Smith. Then I give them the next 3 steps. Okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this. It was just a way to break down directions, because here's what would happen. I would say, okay, here's all the things that we're going to do. Go to your desk and do them. And then I would go around to the groups and they would say, now what are we supposed to do? And so I always just gave information in chunks of 3. It is what they can remember, whether they are in kindergarten or they are in 12th grade in my AP Art History class. I'm not joking. So 3 things, that's all they could do. So that's just my way of don't give them too many directions.
right, or don't put them in groups and say, okay, here's your project, now do it.
Yeah.
Because I always said that doing good cooperative learning is like being pecked to death by chickens, because you are moving constantly from group to group. It is constant facilitation of separate groups. And sometimes even stopping everyone and saying, okay, I see a common misconception here is blank, so let me address that now.
That's why you need a bell or a signal to address the entire group.
Yeah.
Stop them and then address the whole group, because if you see that 2 or 3 groups are having the same problem, well then you need to re-facilitate. You need to give better, clearer directions.
So when Adria says give them 3 things to do, 3-step directions, I think she means like every class period while they're working in cooperative groups, you are very, very clear about what their tasks are. These are the 3 tasks to accomplish today, because you can't just let them go. I mean, they will not work. Also, group formation is a whole other website. If you've never learned True Colors, contact me and I will come do it for you at your school. Then you can color your kids and know how to put effective groups together based on personality type, because that is really important.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions that we have?
Let me see. I had a great suggestion here from Kendra. she says, I have my kids stand and then tell them they have to touch a given number of chairs while they're walking and then stop and share their answer with whomever they are standing by. So that is very, very good. Julie Bruner, they do lab work in groups of 3 to 4. They use different equipment, and that's really kinesthetic. Also, one more thing to think about is I know some teachers who take graphic organizers and blow them up and put them on walls, on butcher paper, or even on the floor, and kids have to stand up and work in groups filling in the graphic organizers on large swatches of paper or on long pieces of walls. A great way to do time sequence is if you're studying something that's a process or an investigation or an experiment, or you're creating or inventing something. If you're studying a novel or a historical event, you have the kids create a timeline of events that they create vertically on butcher paper across the room. And then they add to that as they progress. This is especially effective if you're working through a large text or a big project, because kids can come in the next day and review where they stopped the day before. So lots of ways to use graphic organizers as kinesthetic opportunities. Yeah, Crystal says giant Post-its.
Yes.
I love them because my kids can move with them around an area and they are stackable. Absolutely. The bad thing is that they're expensive.
Yeah.
They're ridiculously expensive. So use butcher paper and blue tape if you can't get them any other way. Or beg, borrow, and steal bath board that is cut into that size and have about 10 of them in your room, and the kids can pick them up and write on them and then erase them. If you know somebody, or even Lowe's will cut that stuff for you, and you use dry erase markers, and they're reusable. So that's an idea.
Yeah. Yes. Perfect. Okay. Thank you for sharing and communicating. It's kind of hard on this end when I don't have any information coming from you. So thank you for sharing. I love it. The next slide that we have up is fluency and practice. When we think about fluency, we think of smooth reading. That's very true. But it's also the ability to express their ideas, to see a big picture rather than just word for word. We really want students to experience the same text multiple times in different ways. It can change as readers look at it in different materials, meaning their fluency, if I have them look at it through a graphic organizer, it changes their understanding rather than just reading it on the page. So I'm making a smooth understanding. That's what fluency is in practice. Jigsawing a reading is great. What they do is each student in a group, or all of us read the material, then you become an expert in paragraph 1, you become an expert of paragraph 2, what are the main ideas. This is something they can do in their groups, and then later they share their expertise with a different group. So maybe I have all of the 2s together, they all become an expert on paragraph 2. Then I pair those kids with the expert from paragraph 1 and paragraph 3. So then the 2 is going to share their information to the 1 and the 3. Kind of is complicated, but there are different ways that you can jigsaw a reading. All of the students will see the text once. I become an expert in my certain paragraph or area, and then I share it with experts from other areas. That's how I always did jigsawing. There are different ways that you can do it, but the students, the important thing is for them to become an expert with others so that the ideas presented are not just their ideas. It takes away that apprehension of sharing. So they can say, well, my group said this was important about this paragraph, instead of it just being their idea and their sole idea. The other thing is reader's theater. Listen, this is so powerful, and a lot of teachers shy away because they're thinking, oh, that's not really me. I really couldn't do that. But the kids love it. Remember that they are so, are so focused on themselves. They want to be a star. They want to be important. They want to show that they know something. So they can do a big-time reader's theater over the information. They can do little things sitting at their desk of, okay, so show me one hand gesture or emotion that makes sense with this equation or with this paragraph about genetics. How in the world would they come up with a gesture or emotion that would link that information? Think charades. Kids love to act things out. This is always great with vocabulary words. They loved it. They loved coming up with a movement or a hand gesture or a facial expression that showed that thing. Again, we're linking kinesthetically their body to something that they've learned. And then the other thing with fluency and practice, and there are many different ways that you can do this, and I'll refer to the handout in just a moment, but choral reading is great because what that means is we're all going to read the same text at once. Like if you ever went to church and you had like the pastor read one part and then the congregation read another, it's that exact same idea. It helps the kids that are not fluent in English hear those words to practice themselves. They can always be quieter at a part that they're not sure of, and they can always be louder on words that they are sure of. It gives kids the fluency of hearing you read it first and then them mimic that so that they hear how things are supposed to be read, where I pause, where I break. Why is it important to break here? Well, this is the end of the message. So choral reading is really, really strong and a good strategy to use for fluency and for them to practice listening and speaking correctly. Yes.
Ella has a really nice comment. She said, my kids love choral reading. You can see them try to become one voice. So cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just very, very powerful, especially with cadence. I think that students don't know how to read with a fluency, with a cadence, and it helps for them to hear you do it first, and then again for them to do it all together. Also, it takes away the pressure of getting a word wrong, and we want kids to take risks. So again, if they're a voice of 20, and I say the word applicable wrong, and I say it's applicable, or I say it differently, it doesn't matter. No one can really hear it because we're all together. So, so that's one of the things. I want you to look at your handouts, and there's a page that says Ideas for Strategies and Differentiation. So if you can just do that, I'll take some time to let you find that in your packet, Ideas for Strategies and Differentiation. Okay. This page and what I have up here, I think this page is probably one of the most powerful pages in this huge packet that we gave you, just because it's one of those that I would have in my lesson plan book that I could refer to. How can I get these kids? And differentiation just means I'm presenting information in a different way for different types of learners. That's kind of how I always thought of it. Think marks are great. Again, they need to be intimate with the text. They need to be having a conversation with the text. And so, again, I'm looking at the handout, not exactly what's on the screen for you. I always made a bookmark of these, and I think there's one in your packet of a bookmark that you can print off and have for your students when they're reading. Wax Museum, it's awesome. Kids, again, love to act things out and become experts. They want that. Now, you're always going to have a quiet student, so, again, differentiate. Maybe they draw their wax figure and they don't necessarily have to talk to everyone. Anticipation guide, this comes from Max Teaching. I don't know if you've ever seen this website, but it's fabulous. He has all kinds of anticipation guides for all kinds of subjects. So it's MAXX Teaching. Graffiti board is kind of what we already brought up in our conversation, having it out there where the kids can just put the text or visuals on there in their own words. And then number 5 goes along with the choral reading, the reading strategies. This is so powerful. The partner reading, they read a text together. And you might think, oh, it's so loud, how can they concentrate? Our kids are used to noise. School is strange to them that there are times when it's so quiet, because when they go home, it's never quiet. And so don't think that, well, all those kids reading at once is going to be distracting. Not really. It kind of helps them have that white noise in the background to really focus. Choral reading, I read, you read. Students alternate reading the same text. And I love echo reading. One student reads, then the partner rereads the same passage. Because a lot of kids can read but not comprehend what they've read. But when someone else reads it, now they've heard it twice, and they're comprehending a little bit more. So that's wonderful. Jigsawing is on there, number 6. Timeline, 7, we've talked about. Tweeting, this can be used math, science, all over the place. They have to only have 140 characters and cover the main ideas or objectives that we've talked about. Reader's Theater is there, concept maps, graphic organizers, and flipbooks. So this page, again, is just one of those you can print off this page, put it in your lesson plan book, and use it. Use it every day. Choice boards, menu, you can find these on the internet. I would use them in my classroom. They got one at the beginning of each semester, and they had to X out the board. It was kind of like a bingo board. And so one choice would be write an essay. Another choice would be create a storyboard with important information with the visuals. One would be create a commercial using iTV or iMovie. Another, so it just kind of depends. But they were showing me they knew that information at a really deep level of that information, but it was their choice. And then I had a rubric that went with each one of those. That way, when I was grading 140 papers, it wasn't just 140 essays. I would have, 20 storyboards, 10 essays, so forth, so on and so forth. Please make sure that the next bullet on the screen, activities engage both hemispheres of the brain. That's how we're getting them to connect that information, learn that information, and really hold it in, keep it in. Got anything to add there, Kim?
You can, if you've never done learning styles, NSU has the Oklahoma Institute for Learning Styles, which is called OILS. They do have a workshop every other summer or so where you can learn about brain processing styles. And so, whether you're a global or analytic processor, or if you use both hemispheres of the brain, that is really interesting to learn about and the different techniques that you utilize. But I also believe that anytime, if you are making things visual, kinesthetic, sequential, and utilizing patterns, you are reaching a lot of that. So, you can do some independent research on those things, but everything that she's mentioned really helps with both of those processing styles. The earlier the child, typically, the more global they tend to be, although you will have very young children who are extremely analytic and really want things in a sequential order. So that's just an interesting thing to learn about. So you might check out OILS at NSU.
Okay, going back to your handout before we move on, the next page after the strategies and differentiation, you have just some quick and dirty things that you can use. A reading agreement contract, use it, take it, leave it. Word wallets, while you read a book, collect new or interesting words. Again, this could go on your word wall. It doesn't have to be necessarily right on this page. After that, you have something called tic-tac-toe. This is kind of like this is for a math unit, and this is like a choice board for them. So you can see all the different choices that they could do to show that they've learned a process. Easy. Again, it gives them choice, which we know when we get choice, we're going to buy in. If you give your students choice, they'll buy in. They'll want to show you what they know. The next is a reading mental picture. Again, this is my most vivid mental picture. I have so many students who are wonderful artists who doodle on their pages. We'll give them something to doodle about, and then they have to explain it. The next page is research organizer. Then you have the artist storyboard, which I mentioned. I would show them movies, storyboards. They're on the website. You can YouTube it, storyboards for whatever movie, to show them what a storyboard looks like and why it's important. So that is very helpful. The questions for thinking is there. That's the bookmark I was talking about. Layered level books. Here's some more foldables. I'm just scrolling through the packet. Vocabulary books. These are all folding instructions foldables. Okay? So Tim's going to get you to the next slide. And these are websites that we were going to take you to, but you can use them, take them or leave them, however you want to do. And I'll just kind of talk to you about what each one does. Glogster is free. It's an easy way to get your kids to present information. It goes with technology literacy. That's why we have it in here. They can upload images, links, videos to show their learning. So you give them a topic and they can link it to all these different websites, but it's all on one screen. Excuse me. They can use things like Skype to show so I had AP Art History. My kids would film architecture, and then they would bring it back and show it to the class. Well, here's an example of Art Deco in Oklahoma City, and then they would talk about it. You can use things like Flickr, Wordle, which we've already talked about, just tons of other ideas, websites, and it's all on one free site. BrainPop and Starfall are great elementary skill review sites, which are also very helpful.
Would you repeat the names of those?
BrainPop and Starfall. S-T-A-R-F-A-L. Starfall.
Are they both one word?
Yes. But they're great reviews. So if you're learning, whatever elementary skill that you're learning, I'm sorry, they just elude me. I'll go with art. If we're learning texture, I could go maybe there and find that. If we're learning multiplication, there's great quiz sites to look at. So that's Glogster. It's a great thing for your kids to use. Again, make your kids do the work. You don't do the work, make the kids do the work. Just like some of our professors did in college when we did work for them in their dissertation. Okay, so kidblog.org is the next one. It's a secure site. Again, you're the chairperson, you're the monitor, and students can write blogs and comment on their classmates' blogs. You can adjust the settings for publishing and commenting. It just is a way to get them communicating with one another outside of the classroom. This helps really those shy kids who want to share in class but never do, to be able to share. I never used KidBlog. I had a wiki site for my art history kids, and it was very, very powerful to hear their comments and for me to look at what they said about the art that they were looking at and what impact it had on them. Sometimes people are much more free on the internet, like when they're writing. And again, we're showing literacy by them reading, them writing, responding with communication, and the vocabulary that we've taught them. So you're hitting 4 of the literacy categories in one option.
I'd like to add that a lot of what Adri is referring to is what Dr. Nell Duke refers to as authentic assessment, that you utilize blogs, Glogster, Prezis, presentation to classmates and to other classes, presentations to school officials, to community officials. All of those are what she calls authentic assessment and authentic audience and purpose. So you can read a lot and learn a lot from Dr. Nell Duke, and you can Google her and find many, many references to her work and how authentic assessment connects to motivation for kids and learning in depth. So she is a great resource, and she really recommends things like blogging at all grade levels.
Absolutely. The next thing is lap booking. This is a great way for younger ages to do research and be able to present that research. Manila folders are really cheap and easy for us to find and recycle. So this I love. I loved doing this, and it was easy for me to take home and grade. It was easy for them to present. And so this also comes from Dinah Zeitz, and she has a website, and it is, Kim's going to type it in, www.zinah.com, and it has all kinds of lap booking, lap books, literacy units, all kinds of things that you can use these for. Again, it's information in a different way. It's not just a piece of paper. And a lot of times kids, even though you're asking them to do the same thing you would be doing on a worksheet, they love doing it in a different formation or form. So lap booking is fabulous. Again, and you can get them to the heart of the matter if you ask the right questions with this. They're really engaging with the text to find those answers and present information learned. The next page is probably my favorite. Composition notebooks are 99 cents at the beginning of the year. I had my students get these, and we notebooked. They put their journaling in there. They put answers to questions. It was a true communication with me and the student. Again, it was very easy to collect, very easy to grade, and to look at. You'll see the example here. They have an illustration of the concept as well as key ideas. It's much easier for them to take a composition notebook with them on the bus to look at and to review and to study. I had my AP Art History kids put the pictures in there or draw the picture of the artwork that they were supposed to be learning. It's just a great way to review information, an excellent way to share it with each other. So please, please, please think about it. I just loved it. It was also a way for me to do Cornell notes with them, or what else do you call it? Two-column notes with them, and I can have a conversation with them as well. So on two-column notes, they put the key point or information in the left-hand side and then their response to it on the right. Or they would put a question that I posed in class and their response to it on the right. So either one of those you could use with notebooking. I loved it. I think a composition notebook was easy for them to carry around, and my art history students, they just ate it up.
So utilize graphic organizers, too, in their notebooking that they can draw and teach them to start graphically organizing information for their own studying purposes. I have a son who really struggles with note-taking, and he is a very global learner, and what has really saved him in college is the use of graphic organizers for taking notes in classes, rather than trying to take these long, write everything down ideas. So when he starts hearing, oh, well, the professor's going to give me a sequence, he automatically uses that graphic organizer. Or a comparison, he does that on his own, and I'm telling you, I don't know if he could have gotten through college without learning that skill. So graphic organizers with note-taking is really helpful.
The next one is annotating the text. Annotation is just a big kind of word that I always told my kids that just means you're having a conversation with the text. So we would always read it first together. I didn't have them mark anything the first time that we read it. Then we would read it again. You can use one of the reading strategies we've gone over, partner read, echo reading, choral read, whatever way that you want to read it again. But They now have a task. They underline important words or information. Then we read it again. Notice we've looked at the text now 3 times. Circle words or phrases that are different or new. Now this is really basic. You can give your kids like a legend or a key of how to annotate. This is just really basic, again. There are so many different ways to annotate a text. Look them up. This just works very quick and easy. Underlining and circling, we can do that. And then we've read it 3 times. The last thing that they do is they do a gist, which is in 20 words or less, write a summary of the information that they've read. They could do that in the margins. They could do it in their notebook. I always encourage mine to do it in the margins because then they could go back and read their own words and figure out what the main idea or the main point was of the entire piece. They would do that paragraph by paragraph. Students are automatically going to resist this because you're making them do things over and over again, but they're going to know what that text says. Again, take it back to whatever analogy you gave of them. Mine was always dating. Listen, you can't just go on one date and think you know everything about that person. You got to go on 2 or 3 dates, 4, 5, you know. So whatever analogy you gave them about reading, please connect it always. So annotating. Now, the higher level of student you have, the more types of annotation they can do. You know, my kids, once they start seeing a pattern, they would have basically like their own little legend. Well, if it's a negative word, we would put scribbles underneath it. If I really liked what it said, or if it's a positive word, I'd put a smiley face by it. So then I can see the tone of the piece. I mean, it just kind of works on whatever your goal is for them reading that text. You can talk to them about their annotation key. But having a conversation with the text is so important. If you just have a novel and the kids can't write in it, get them some sticky notes and put that in there. Sticky notes are relatively inexpensive, and you can always put them on your class list at the beginning of the year. That's what I did, and I had a cabinet full of sticky notes, and that's how they annotated the text. So, if they can't write, give them those sticky notes. And my students, sometimes they would say, can we use our sticky notes on the test? And I'd be like, absolutely, sure, because those are your thoughts, your ideas. So it just depends on how you want them to annotate the text. It is so crucial and important, especially in reading questions, to annotate not only the text, but the question as well. So annotating the question and then annotating the text to that question, just a great, great skill that students can learn.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is that helping kids understand that a lot of the reading that they do is not close reading. It's just drive-by reading, right? They read it, right. They read it, and they don't notice anything. And that real reading, that close reading, means that you have a dialogue in your brain with the text, and that is when you really start making connections. So annotation was the only way I was able to teach my secondary students that that's what reading was. And I would have them annotate with Post-it notes, and at the end of the hour, because we read almost everything out loud together, because they really didn't know how to read complex text. So at the end of the hour, they had to pull all of their annotations out of the text, put them on a piece of paper with their name and turn it in, and that was a grade. And you can do that in any subject area. And in the beginning, I would say, okay, write this down. Here's our first annotation. Here's our next annotation. Until I felt like they were getting the hang of it. Then I started removing support. And I would say, okay, today we're going to have 5 full class annotations, but by the end of the hour, I want you to have 5 relevant annotations of your own to turn in. And it couldn't be like an annotation like, you know, I really hate this section, or I don't like what we're reading. That's not an annotation.
Right.
And that's how I gave them a grade for it. And I had kids say to me, oh, well, I didn't know this was what reading was. So
Right.
I think it really works.
Yes. And she brought up a great point in that it's just very powerful for them to see their own thoughts on paper about a topic, whereas it's not something forced on them anymore. It's something they can do, they can engage in. All right, so annotating the text, best for last, I say. The next thing is in your is rubrics, and it's in your packet as well, and it gives you all types of rubrics where you can create a rubric. It's a great way to objectively grade something. It takes subjection out of there. Rubrics are so powerful. Please use them, because in conferences they're very helpful. Why did my student get this grade? Let me show you this rubric. This is why they got this grade. You need to show rubrics ahead of time. Let me stress that. Show the students what they're expected to do ahead of time. So you can't just have a rubric at the end. They need to see it before so that they can see what the grade consists of. So that's rubrics. I'm going very quickly over them because I figure most all of us use them.
Let me add, if you have never been to Rubistar for Teachers, it is the best website on the planet to create rubrics, because there are thousands of them online.
Already done.
You steal them. You can change the criteria or the categories from drop-down menus, and it's searchable. So if you're looking for a rubric for a science experiment, type that in for the 6th grade level, and you'll have 10 to choose from. So, and I put that on the chat feature, and we'll include it in my email to you.
It's on their handout, too.
Oh,
it's on your handout.
Never mind.
Rubistar, it's there. So, the first hour we kind of talked about literacy. What is literacy? The second hour today we've talked about strategies. So here's kind of our summation. Just use the best strategies that you can. Try them. If they fail, try them again. You wouldn't let your students give up on themselves. Don't give up on yourself, okay? That's what I always say in my presentations. You know, we're going to try these strategies, and some of them won't go well, but reflect on that and make modifications and try it again. Do it again and again and again. You wouldn't let your students give up on it. You don't give up on yourself. So take it, use it. This page right here, notice that it says engage in sharing platforms that ensure strategies and tools are kept sharp with reflection and peer feedback. Have people come observe you do it. You know, we learn best when we kind of remove ourselves. When someone comes in and says, oh my goodness, you are so great at this, or maybe you should try this. Help each other out. Find a buddy that can do that. And then there are tons of websites in your packet handout. These last few pages are websites that you can go to. I mean, just use them. There's Blogspot. There's all kinds of text questioning. Everything is here. Things that maybe we didn't talk about is here. So just use it, abuse it, please. That is, here's your interactive part if you're still here. Where do you feel now? How do you feel now, and why with Common Core and literacy in your classroom, in adopting some literacy strategies? I always think this is kind of funny. And this is a great thing to steal and do with your kids as well. You know, are you 12, just barely hanging on? Are you 5, someone pushed you off and you just, I don't even know, I'm just falling.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
And you guys will receive, as soon as the email's over or the web presentation is over, sometimes, I don't want to say as soon as, you will receive a link to complete the online evaluation. And that is how you receive your professional development certificate, is at the bottom. We ask you to fill in your information, and then we hard mail those to you on colored paper and colored ink so that it's official. So that's how you get your professional development certificate. Several of you several of you have emailed or texted me and said, can we get the PowerPoint? We are not allowed to send you the actual PowerPoint because it is cadre proprietary information. The OEA owns that material. What you can do is watch this webinar online as many times as you want. We are planning on keeping them archived till we reach maximum capacity and then start having to remove them. So they'll be there for quite a while. Again, I will see if I can copy and paste the chat and send it in the email. I don't know if that is possible. And so if you have any questions, what I'll do is unmute the phone after we end the webinar in a second, or you can chat it in. And I'm going to move the slide right now to Adria's contact information. There she is, those two beautiful girls. And you can contact Adria, and then I included mine in the chat, but my email is kluttrell. My name's Kim Luttrell, so it's KLITTRELL at okea.org. And you can reach us after that point, after today, at email. We appreciate you taking your time on a busy Saturday morning and learning about literacy. If you enjoyed our webinar, please spread the word. The last one we will do this school year, will probably come up in May, or we may do it in June after school is out, but we're going to continue this series because we've just had a great response. We really, really appreciate you. Now go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and I'm going to unmute the phone lines, and if you want to stay on and ask a question, please do so now. Thank you again.
The conference has been muted. The conference has been unmuted.
He's logging off. You hear him? Bloop, 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 bloop.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. I kind of missed